Hi everyone, it's a new month and time for Spellbinder's club releases. The large die of the month Classic Tales is a gorgeous die set. Like many of you, I am a book lover and I adore this theme. So let's get started with a fun inside display shadow box. This is so easy and fun to make. I'm starting off with a piece of blue cardstock that is 11 inches by 4¼ inches. I'm scoring at 5½ inches and also 1½ inches on one end. This will form the card base. I use the side of my bone folder to burnish to get nice crisp creases. To create the frame for the shadow box, I'll use another piece of light blue cardstock that is sized 4¼ by 5¼ inches. Either end will be scored at the ½ inch mark. I'm not going to crease the score lines just yet, but these will form the tabs to attach this panel to the card base. A window will be cut from this panel. One of the dies from the Notch Corner Frames die set will be centered between the two score lines. The score lines can now be folded and then burnished with the bone folder. The depth of the shadow box is 1½ inches, so we're going to create another pop-up in between the frame and the card base. I'm going to create the standard pop-up mechanism. My light blue cardstock is 3 inches by 4¼ inches. These can be created at any width. I'm going to go the full 4¼ inches, the same width as the card base, because I'm going to be attaching a hillside border to it. There are 3 score lines, 3/4 inch, 1½ inches, 2¼ inches. All of the crease lines will be folded in the same direction, and in the end they will form a square. And that's it, but before we start assembling the shadow box, I'm first going to mask off that top crease line and add a little bit of Distress Oxide faded jeans. The dark blue ink at the top of the sky will add some further definition and depth to the overall scene. As I'm applying the ink, I periodically will hold up the frame just to see how much of that ink is going to show. To keep a smooth blend between the light blue cardstock and the ink, the pressure is fairly light and I apply the ink several times. Creating 2 hillsides out of green cardstock. One will sit right at the very back of the panel. The other one will be adhered to the pop-up mechanism. To see how high to make that back hillside, I'm just going to lay everything out first. And I'm going to push that die up just a little bit. I'm using a die set by Spellbinders called Color Block Scenescapes, but these hillsides could be easily cut by hand. Before adhering the pop-up mechanism, the hillside that will sit at the back of the shadow box is adhered. The end section of the pop-up is pushed right along that crease of the card base, adhering it to the back panel. Then adhesive is applied to the other end section and it is folded down into the crease line and it will be adhered to the front inside of the card base. And then it is left to completely dry, which doesn't take long, but this is an important step when making interactive cards. Now I'll trim the second hillside down to 4¼ inches, and that will be adhered to the front of the pop-up box. When positioning the hillside, I make sure that it is lining up to either end of the pop-up mechanism. Now to attach the frame. It is applied to the tab and then it will be positioned so that it is on the inside of the card front. Again, it is important to let that adhesive dry completely, which only takes a few minutes before proceeding. An adhesive is added to the other tab and it is pushed up right along the bottom of that hillside that is on the pop-up. And there you go, you can see what it looks like from the side view. When everything is completely dry, I'll open and close the card several times to condition it. This step will ensure that both the pop-up mechanism and the shadow box itself is opening and closing smoothly. And now to start decorating this shadow box with the large die of the month Classic Tales. This is such a fabulous die set. Started off by just laying out a few of the tree trunks, 2 of which will frame the window and a couple more that are positioned in the scene itself. And now I'm going to put this cute little house together. The black roof is adhered to the main die cut of the house, which is out of teal cardstock. The house and the side of the house have also been die cut from blue cardstock so that I can use the windows. And I'm placing a little bit of Scotch tape on the back of the windows so that I can inlay them. I love red and teal, so there had to be a red door. The little stream of dark gray smoke is adhered to the chimney before it is positioned onto the rooftop. Then it is finished up by adhering the little end piece onto the house. So super cute. Now to add the greenery to the trees. Because I laid out my trees, I know where each one is going. So as I put together each of the trees, I'm going to add them into my scene. This tree is going to sit right at the back of the shadow box, and there is that little pop-up mechanism there, so I will trim down some of the trunk. The second tree was also trimmed down and attached to the back of the house. The final 2 trees are going to sit on the outside of the shadow box, framing the window. Now, isn't this just starting to come together and look like a scene right out of a storybook? And after the second tree is adhered to the other side of the window, we're going to use this adorable die cut of an open book and put it right at the base of the window. This is made up of 2 die cuts, the pages and the book cover, which I have done in red to pick up the red of the front door of the house. I'm just loving this sweet little scene coming right out of the pages of a storybook. And I also decided to add another tree which has been trimmed down so that it would sit right on the side of the house. So much depth is created by adding a tree right at the back of the shadow box, and then another pair of trees behind and in front of the pop-up hillside, and then finally framing the window. 2 different sizes of book spines are included. The taller one has 2 design overlays where the other one has just 1. Rather than having the book standing vertically, I decided to go with a stacked design. Because the card front has that fold that cannot be impeded, this was the best choice. I started off by adhering 2 books right below that crease line and 1 above it. And before I went any further, I decided to add a little bit of the Distress Oxide ink, Faded Jeans, around the top portion of the card front. The other book was adhered on top, but before I adhered the last one, I first wanted to put in some greenery. These leafy branches are also included in the die set. And then on goes the 3rd branch, and the book will then be adhered over top of the stem ends. The sentiment that is included in the Better Press plate of the month is perfect for this card. The plate has been inked with Better Press black ink onto the light blue cardstock. The sentiment has a coordinating die along with an oval which I've used to cut red cardstock. The inside of the card continues with the stacked book theme, and then the sentiment is going to sit on top. The sentiment was positioned in the upper portion of the oval so that I would have enough room just to trim off a little bit of the bottom so that it would have a straight edge. The front of the card was finished off with some small flowers that are found in the 4-petal bloom reflection die set. They were cut from cream cardstock, and then I'll finish off the centers with some buttermilk Nouveau crystal drops. After adding a couple more accent drops, the card will be set aside overnight to dry completely, and then I'll add a few details to the shadow box display. And fast forward about 15 hours, I'm adding in some more of the same colored Nouveau drops to the trees to add a touch of whimsy to this storybook scene. And once again, it's set aside to dry overnight. And now that the Nouveau drops are completely dry, I can show you how this card lies completely flat, fits into an ordinary envelope, and when opened up reveals this incredible shadow box. And an added bonus for the recipient. When the card is opened up, it will sit flat so that the shadow box can be on display. This was a fun and easy interactive card to make. And Spellbinder's Large Die of the Month Classic Tales was the perfect theme. I love the display of books on the front of this card. Although it's clear what this card is all about, I'm pretty sure that the recipient will be surprised when they open it up to reveal this storybook scene leaping off the pages of an open book. Thank you for joining me. As always, I appreciate your visit.